Olgrotha. It's interesting for its own reasons, don't get me wrong, because on one hand, this plane is not remembered that fondly. However, its story is better told as a cautionary tale, and a great example of why the mending happened. Olgrotha is described as a backwater because for a majority of its existence, its populace has been at war, and 9 times out of 10, a planeswalker was involved. The first recorded event details 2 different groups, the Tolgaths and a cabal of wizards and planeswalkers called the Ancients and their war. The two fought over knowledge the Ancients held and that the Tolgaths wanted desperately. Tolgaths gave a druid named Ravi an artifact called the Apocalypse Chime and told her to ring it at, quote, the most sinister of times, whatever that means. Anyway, during a battle, Ravi rang the Apocalypse Chime after the Ancients unleashed a huge rift that essentially doubled everyone's mana, and I want you to guess what happened when Ravi rang the Apocalypse Chime. If your guess was cause an apocalypse, you'd be correct! Your prize is hearing the rest of the story. The ringing of the chime created a large dead zone on Olgrotha. It ravaged mana channels. The chime was so strong, it was felt on Dominaria and Kamigawa. To survive, Ravi did as she was told. She got in a specially made coffin and hid in a basalt tower, but no one told her how to open the coffin, and she was completely cut off from the land in the heart of the dead zone. So, she slowly fell into a deep madness. 20 years later, folks slowly began to settle in the mountains. With the constantly violent storms, unpredictable weather, and seasons, living underground became something of a luxury. 40 years later, the war became an ancestral tale. For the most part, society broke down. There isn't even a widespread written language at this point. 220 years later, this area is taken over by a vampire named Baron Sengir, who was summoned there by a planeswalker duel, and it would be Sengir who finally let Ravi out of the coffin, and then started calling her grandma for some reason, and then called for a planeswalker duel across the plane, turning the plane into a PvP area, all the while torturing a group of dwarves. He stole their homes and turned their leader's daughter into a vampire, and it gutted morale so hard they left. Sengir took over the castle and surrounding villages for his own amusement, torture, of course, being the name of the game. The Dark Barony, as it would later be known, would be created, where there was one rule: no leaving. It was around this point that Faraz and Sarah arrived. Yes, that Sarah, the one that created that realm that Urza destroyed, and they began trying to help the people of the homelands against the Baron's wishes. Faraz was able to create a barrier around Olgrotha, which kept more planeswalkers from arriving, called Faraz's Ban. Eventually, with enough time and planning, Sengir was able to outlast Faraz, who perished in an untimely accident, and heartbroken, Sarah left Olgrotha, and Faraz's ban slowly lifted, allowing planeswalkers to return. Olgrotha is a plane torn apart by planeswalkers. The war between the Ancients and the Tolgaths, the duels that occurred, Sengir's rise in the Dark Barony to now, it's all because of planeswalkers. Their innate power and knowledge at the time, and the people who wanted it, caused not only a power struggle, but the end of civilization on the plane. Olgrotha is now a dead world ruled by one man who will stop at nothing to hold onto his personal freedom. The two walkers that did try and protect the small population that remains were not only turned away, but were actively warred against and thwarted. I am cursed to know about the homelands, and now you are too. Happy belated April Fools.